Syracuse basketball still has 3 open scholarships remaining, but let's talk about some of the strengths of Syracuse and also their weaknesses heading into next season.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we will discuss how Syracuse basketball still has 3 open scholarships remaining. We'll talk about the strengths of the roster. We'll talk about some of the weaknesses. And later on in the podcast, we can talk about the 2 centers on the roster, William Kyle and Ibrahim Souare, 2 transfer portal additions for Syracuse. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see our guest for today's show, same guest as yesterday's podcast, Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. Thank you, Neil, for taking the time to join me on a second straight edition here of Locked On Syracuse. Now, before we get to your thoughts on this roster, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, Neil, Syracuse still has 3 open scholarships remaining, and we can talk about how Syracuse can use them when we discuss the weaknesses on the roster right now. But how would you evaluate the roster so far?
Well, Jackson, thanks for having me on again. 2 days in a row, brother. Appreciate you. It's tough. There's so much turnover, not just at Syracuse, but at pretty much every program. So it's like we're judging things based on rankings and obviously what the guys did at their previous school or in high school. As we talked about in our last podcast, the importance of JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman coming back. You can't say that enough. And Alex Klein and Autry talked about that at their state of the program. Having those 2 pieces is like your foundation, and then building around that. So, you can't underestimate that. I think the roster on paper looks better than this past season. Is that saying much? They went 14-19. So just not trying to trash this past season's team, but hopefully there'll be a marked improvement. I think they have plenty of guards. I think and it sounds like we're gonna kind of get into this in a second, but maybe could look at adding another small forward or a power forward / center. I think defense is. I'm hoping that the team will be better on defense than it was this past year, but I'm still a little suspect. From in terms of outside shooting, they've got some guys that are shooters. It'll just be interesting to see what the rotations are, end up looking like, beyond just the starting lineup. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a preseason top 25 team. But let's face it, we just want to get back to March Madness. It's been, they've missed it for 4 years since 2021. Can they do that? I think they can. I don't think they're a lock. But again, this is like such, pure speculation right now. And since we're just in early May, but to sum it up, I do think the roster looks better than last year. But I have not, I don't want to say concern. Yeah, I have concerns. I have questions, what's going to happen with, the center spot and, are they going to be better on defense? How are they going to shoot outside? Are they going to be able to close out opponents? And also, frankly, when they do lose, are they going to keep games close or get blown out? That's something that's been kind of an issue the last few years. So, we'll see. I'm not like, I think as we talked about yesterday, in the previous podcast, I think Nate George was a huge pickup, and I like Nate Kings as well. And so there's solid pieces there and a nice incoming class, but it's just tough. It's like they've got 12 guys and 10 of them are new, like 6 transfers and 4 high school recruits. So we'll see. What do you think?
So I do think on paper right now, the roster does look better. But like you said, that's not saying much. I mean, I hope you're better. You went 14-19 last year, including the ACC tournament. You went 13-18 in the regular season. I think the biggest strength is just overall, I think their ability to score. It's kind of funny because Syracuse basketball last year, you would think that their offense is horrible. Like I would expect you to think that way. You have Donnie Freeman out for more than half the season, who was one of your leading scorers. JJ Starling missed some time. And let's face it, the personnel on the roster was not great. I mean, Eddie Lampkin could score a little, and outside of that, there wasn't really much, right? And yet, I look at the ACC stats. They were 8th in offense last year in the conference. They averaged about 75 points a game. It's not horrible. It's not terrible on offense last year. And now I look at the roster on paper and I say, I think they're going to be better than 74.7 points per game. You got Nathan George, who can score a little. Like, he can he's going to probably average over 10 points a game. He just did it last year at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And he's also an elite passer.
Yeah.
So he's going to help players get into better positions than maybe last year, right? I think he is going to end up being what we were hoping that Jake Juan Carlos was going to be. Just to be blunt with all of you. You got JJ Starling, who I don't think will average around 17, 18 points a game like he did last year, but I don't think he'll necessarily have to. I think he'll have that I think he'll still be counted on as the team's leading scorer, but I don't think he'll have to be the only player on the offense that has to score.
Well, if he averages a little bit less, but is more efficient and shoots
exactly, if he can be a little bit more efficient, we'll take that. And 15 points a game, fine. Donnie Freeman for a whole season, hopefully, right? Hopefully he's healthy for a whole year. And then I think Nate Kings is probably going to be a little bit more consistent than Chris Bell. So I look at those 4 players alone and I say, I think Syracuse is going to be better on offense. I think they're going to be able to score okay. They might have a top 5 scoring offense in the ACC. What do you think?
Top 5? What would that require them to average? Like upper 70s?
So last year, top 5 in the ACC.
I don't know that.
You wanted to be 5th in the ACC.
Right.
That was Clemson, 76.1 points a game.
Oh, I mean, if I get, like you said, and it was well said, they averaged about 75. I definitely think they could average more into this coming season, and hopefully they give up less. So yeah, I think they could be. The keys are multiple, but I'd say one of the main ones for me is, obviously being more consistent from deep, but also like cutting down on turnovers. I mean, the turnovers, because, and I'm not saying I'm like saying Captain Obvious here, but when they're turning the ball over, whether it's live ball and it leads to transition points for the other team, or it's just a turnover and whatever happens in the half court set, those are, it's empty possessions. So, if they can cut down on the turnovers, I think that's a huge thing as well. I definitely could see them averaging 76 to 70 or 80, maybe even low 80s.
I don't know. If
maybe not low 80s. Maybe
they're not going to average 80.
Yeah. What did Duke average this year? They averaged like in the low 80s, didn't they? Something like that.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah. You're right. Okay.
Duke averaged 83.2.
Yeah.
North Carolina was at 80.7. Third place was SMU at 79.9. I think a fair target for Syracuse is like 76 to 78 points a game.
That sounds about
where you're probably targeting, because that'll probably be good enough for top 5 in the ACC this upcoming season. And if you have a top 5 offense in the conference, hopefully, that'll make you a lot better than you were last year. Let's just put it that way.
Well, right? I mean, at this point, if we're it really comes down to are they better on defense?
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of defense, before we get to defense, I do want to point out, just to back up what you were saying about turnovers, I have the stats pulled up right here. Syracuse basketball a year ago was dead last in turnover margin. They were a negative 2.7 turnovers a game.
Yeah, so that's a problem.
That is a major as far as how many they turned over per game, like just themselves coughing the ball up. They were second worst in the conference, over 12 and a half.
I was going to say, it was like hovering around 12-ish for you can't have that. You can't have that.
Nope. And Virginia Tech, for those that are curious, was the worst as far as turnovers.
I never would have guessed that.
They weren't a very good team. So
No.
maybe you could have guessed it.
Right.
So coming up here, we'll talk about the ways where Syracuse basketball can still improve the roster. That's coming up next on Locked On Syracuse. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. That's right, folks. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you would like. And the all-in pricing feature is truly the best because it means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you are going to pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. I'm Jackson Holzer, and this is Locked On Syracuse. The Orange still have 3 open scholarships remaining. So while myself and Neil Adler, we agree that Syracuse on paper right now is a better team than last season, like we have been saying throughout the podcast, that does not really mean a whole lot because this team was not very good a year ago. We talked about the strengths of the team and their ability to probably score a little bit more than last season, and they weren't even terrible on offense a year ago when you look at their stats relative to the ACC. But Neil, when you look at this roster, where do you think they can improve the most?
I feel like it's like they have plenty of guards. I really feel like it's like maybe another small forward, and another big man, power forward / just for depth. I mean, they have 12 guys, so I mean they had 12 guys this year, so it's not like the depth is like going to be a significant issue. And just kind of looking at it, with like, for instance, it's small forward. You got Nate Kings, who could maybe play the 2 as well, and Tyler Betsy, who committed late last week, the latest commit. And then, I don't know if like a guy like Aaron Womack or even Kyan Anthony could play somewhat small forward. They're both, I think, 6'5" or getting close to 6'6". But, again, maybe for depth, another small forward, or a 2-3 like wing player would be good. As we talked about on the previous podcast, I have concerns about the 2 guys that look to be will be splitting the time at center. And I don't mean that like no disrespect. It just, I think they're unproven. I don't, like we talked about before, I don't really care that they're only 6'9" or anything like that. But I think getting another combo, a big man, a 4 who could /5 for depth probably couldn't hurt as well. I mean, I feel like they're probably pretty good on guards, like a backup point guard. Can Bryce Zephyr, is he a combo guard? Can he play point guard as well?
I think so, but to be honest with you, Neil, I don't think Bryce Zephyr's playing a whole lot. I think he's only playing when they're up or I think he's playing garbage time. He's going to play in practice a whole lot, and if Syracuse needs a foul, he's going to be out there to foul.
So, and then I'll turn it back to you. So with that, and I would tend to agree with you. Like, do they want another point guard? But then again, you've got like a guy like Luke Fennell who can play both. He's obviously an incoming freshman. JJ Starling can play the 1 if needed. But we talked about on the previous podcast, Nate George racks up a ton of minutes. So unless he's in foul trouble, or again, knock on wood, we don't want to get injured. But so I don't know. If in a perfect world they're getting to 15, then I'd say another point guard, a 3, and a 4-5 combo. What do you think?
I think they just need to focus on defense. To be honest with
you. Yeah.
Like, I could sit here and talk about shooting too, because I don't know how good of a 3-point shooting team they'll be. But at the same time, I think no matter what, they'll be able to store, even if they're not a good outside shooting team, which I don't think they will be. to be honest with you. I mean, Nate George is not the greatest outside shooter. If he can improve a couple percentage points, that would be ideal. But as of right now, last season he shot 34%, a little under that. Nate Kings is obviously an elite shooter, and then outside of that, you really don't have much. I mean, hopefully Kyan Anthony's really good from outside. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. Donnie Freeman was low 30s last year, 33. Yeah. JJ Starling, I'll believe it when I see it, to be honest with you on him. So, but even with despite all of that, I do think they're going to be able to score.
Yeah.
Defense, I'm highly concerned. I need to bring up the coaching here, because maybe I'd feel differently if Syracuse had Calvin Sampson, the head coach at Houston, as their head coach. But for the last couple of seasons, Syracuse has been bottom 3 in the ACC in points allowed per game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what ultimately cost them a couple of years ago as far as making or missing the NCAA tournament, or really in that case, missing it. Mm-hmm. And last year, I mean, even if they were even better on defense, they still wouldn't have made the tournament. But still, I mean, they're not as embarrassing if they could get a couple of stops on the defensive end.
Oh, right? Yeah, maybe they could finish over 500,
Right.
Yeah.
I look at this roster on paper and I say, maybe you're slightly better on defense, but I don't think you're that much better, because Nathan George is not necessarily a good defender. JJ Starling has never proven to be a good defender. Nate Kings, I have my doubts. I don't think he's that great of a defender either. Donnie Freeman, again, like, could he develop? Sure. I'll believe it when I see it as far as his defense. And then, William Kyle, I've mentioned this before here on the podcast. He is an elite shot blocker. Like, yes, that I will give him. He's got a high block rate and everything like that. I just don't understand why the metrics don't like him on defense. So I guess it's one of those things where we'll have to watch next season and we'll say, all right, is he really a good defender or is he not really a good defender?
Right.
We'll find out. And then you look off the bench and, Kyan Anthony, I don't think he's that great of a defender. Luke Fennell, how good is he on defense? Tyler Betsy, he wasn't exactly good on defense last year for Cincinnati. Ibrahim Souare,
I think Sadiq White has an opportunity.
Sadiq White is the one guy I look at, even though he's coming from high school.
Sure.
Because I have been told multiple times that guy's an elite defender. So hopefully he helps in that regard. I do think Syracuse can be a little bit better on defense, because last year, if you look at their defense rankings, I'll point it out right now.
They're really defense, bad. Yeah.
You could thank Miami for being the worst defense maybe in modern history, allowing 80.6 points per game. But Syracuse was second last at 77.8.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not good enough. And you have Adrian Autry as your head coach. Now, if Kelvin Sampson was your head coach, I'd probably be giving this roster more benefit of the doubt. But as of right now, in the first 2 years of his tenure, they have not been a good defensive team. So when I look at this roster and I look at 3 open scholarships, I say, you need defense.
Mm-hmm.
You need guys that can just help you get stops. Because as of right now, I don't see how they're going to get many stops. What do you think?
I mean, it's tough. Like, 10 of the 12 guys are coming either from other colleges or high school recruits, or actually one guy is, playing overseas, Fennell. So it's tough to gauge right now, but yeah. And sometimes those like evaluations and metrics about efficiencies and stuff can be, I mean, I assume a lot of times they're fairly accurate, but sometimes it can be a little funny. Like you, I have questions and concerns. That being said, unless some weird stuff goes on and there's injuries or whatever, I think they're going to be better on defense. I'm not saying they're going to be.
I don't think they can be much worse.
I mean, fair, Jackson. It's totally fair. I'm not. Yeah, but again, kind of like with their overall record, the bar is pretty low to exceed it this year, and I think the same said about their defense from last year. But yeah, I mean, I it's totally fair to say if they're going to bring in some more guys, it'd be ideal if they were good defenders. I guess here's my, kind of talking point here, and let me know what you think. They already have 12 scholarship players, and they've got, depth at every position and presumed starters or whatever. But how easy is it going to be to convince a transfer, to to come in and a transfer that maybe doesn't score a lot, but is like a good defensive player, but to come in and be like a, like a rotational piece but just doesn't play a ton. I mean, maybe you look at the JUCO route or international or high school. I mean, it's getting pretty late for the high school 2025 class. I don't know how many uncommitted, highly ranked guys there are, but again, how would you convince them to come in? I mean, to be honest with you, I was a little, when I saw the news about Tyler Betsy, I was like, oh, this is cool because, they recruited him in the past. I've written about him in the past. He was, he was a good prep player, but I was like, wow, so that's interesting. Is he, what are they pitching him? Are they pitching him to, get some minutes at the 3? And if he kicks butt, then yeah, maybe he's the starter. I mean, because he was coming in, there's already 11 guys on the roster and not a ton of small forwards, but obviously, Nate Kings, but, maybe Womack or, Anthony. I don't know if either Sadiq or Donnie wouldn't play the 3. I don't know if Sadiq could play the 3, but anyway, yeah, I just don't know how they convince like a really good defender to come in. And I guess if they get a really good defender and someone that's like could be a starter, then you take them. But then would you lose other guys already on the right? Like, I don't. So I agree with you. I'd love to see some punchier defense there. I just don't know how you convince them.
Yeah. I think it'll be hard to add, but as far as a sales pitch, well, first of all, we'll mention the elephant in the room, money. I mean, that doesn't
Sure.
But really, it's very simple to pitch to these players. You shoot, you play. You defend, you play. Like, that's it. If you can do one of those two things, you'll play. There will always be a path to playing time for those that can shoot and for those that can defend. If you can't do either one of those things, and you're just not really that good to begin with, you're not going to play.
You're not going to play.
Like that's the sales pitch. Hey,
yeah.
You're good on defense. So we're going to figure out a way to use you because we're going to need stops at some point during the game. Really, the whole game you're going to need stops, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I do.
We're going to need stops, man. So the sales pitch is you're a really good defender. You're going to play because late in the game, if we're up by 7 points with a minute 30 to go, hey, you're a small forward. Guess what? I understand that Nate Kings is going to probably get more playing time than you, but you're a better defender than Nate Kings. So you're going to be in that situation. Right? Like that's
I totally.
It's not that hard. I think people overrate those types of things with sales pitches. It's like, can you shoot?
I just meant in terms of, if you get the best players you can, but if you're getting someone, really high quality guy coming in right now, obviously does that impact other guys on your roster, like in terms of if they leave, but as we've talked about, you get the best players you can. So yeah. I also have no clue how much, NIL money they have left.
That's another thing that bothers me, Neil, about NIL. How much do we have left? What do you mean? How much do you have left? Like, there is no salary cap to NIL.
Well, I mean,
you really want someone like, can you not figure out a way to go find that money? Like,
yes, you can.
I know it's harder than it sounds, but
sure.
Really, there's no salary cap here when it comes to NIL. You want a player, you can.
Yeah, you got to get.
There's got to be a way to come up with the money.
Yeah, and Autry, and I think it was Autry that said it on the on the state of the program he was talking about, and Wild Hacks mentioned this multiple times over the last 6 months or even longer, how NIL has gotten better, and but they really want to get more funding from the business community versus individual donors, whether wealthy donors or just whatever. Plus another wrinkle here is, assuming the House settlement happens, there'll be revenue sharing, and schools can pay the players directly. I think it's up to $20.5 million starting this year. But another, not to go off topic too much, but another wrinkle is that Wild Hack said earlier this year, because I wrote about it, that they have multiple NIL entities, but was talking about how they're going to get streamlined or something. So like, I don't know what that means, because he mentioned SU football NIL is going to stay in existence and could maybe get into basketball, but then you've got Orange United, which does every sport, and then Athletes Who Care, which, so I don't know. I've tried a little bit to try and dig into that. I haven't gotten anywhere yet, but I assume if something's going to happen, the university or SU Athletics will announce it, but that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But I got off topic there a little bit, but yeah, we'll see. I don't think they're going to end up with 15 guys. I'd be curious to see how many schools around the country, ultimately have 15 scholarship players for this coming season. I can see them adding one or two more, but I don't know. You think they'll add 3?
No, I don't think they're going to add 3. I think they will add 1 or 2, but they do have the flexibility to add 3 if they so choose. And coming up, we'll talk about the center position, because it's a hotly debated topic here in Syracuse circles. There's 2 of them right now on the roster, William Kyle and Ibrahim Souare. Does Syracuse need to add a 7-footer? Well, myself and Neil Adler will discuss that next here on Locked On Syracuse. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your pair of controllers, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and of course, we are joined by Neil Adler from inside the Loud House. We talked about how Syracuse improved the roster, but how much have they improved the roster, right? There are still ways where Syracuse can improve the team with 3 open scholarships remaining. Let's talk about the center position now. You got 2 transfers coming in. Eddie Lampkin's gone, out of eligibility, and also in the transfer portal technically, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. Yeah. Adrian Autry and Alex Klein, they seem very excited about UCLA's William Kyle and Georgia Tech's Ibrahim Souare as that 1-2 punch. They are both 6'9". So, Neil, how do you view Syracuse's center position right now?
Unproven. Is it going to be a liability? That's to be determined. And Klein and Autry, emphatically stated that it doesn't matter that they're only 6'9", because they have wingspans and verticality and all that jazz. So, and I would tend to agree, and we talked about this on the other podcast. A team like Houston went to the title game and frankly should have won the title, and I think their starting center was 6'8" or 6'9". So I don't know. For me, it's not about that. It's more just about Kyle only averaged, I was looking that up when we were getting ready to talk here, about 10 minutes per game as a junior at UCLA. I do believe he had some injury stuff, but the year before that at South Dakota State, I mean, he was the Summit League Defensive Player of the Year, and he's known as a rim protector, blocks shots well. Souare, I mean, again, no disrespect, but he averaged, I'm just looking here, he averaged 17 minutes this past year for Georgia Tech, 2.8 points, 3.6 rebounds. He made 60% from the field, 31% from the free throw line.
31% from the free throw line.
I hope I got that right. That's what I was just looking at one of my articles, so hopefully I didn't butcher that. I don't remember how many attempts. It might have been limited attempts, but I don't know. Autry and Klein are really high on them. I assume Kyle would be the starter at this point. I think they'll be better defensively at the center spot. but like off. I mean, Lampkin towards the middle or second-ish half of the year, he had a lot of double doubles. I
He had
think
a
we
lot
can
of
both.
double doubles throughout the year in general.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like he really got it. I think that happened a little bit more, especially after Donnie unfortunately got hurt. But I mean, let's be honest, he wasn't good on defense. But then again, no one on the team was. So I'm not going to take shots at Eddie. So I think these two centers, while unproven, and Kyle had some injury stuff. I think they'll be better defensively. I don't know how much offensive production Syracuse will get out of them. I'm also curious, like, are they going to each play around the same amount of time, or is Kyle going to get 30 minutes and Souare, but like we talked about on the previous podcast, could we see Lampkin? Could we see Sadiq White and/or Donnie Freeman at the 5 some too? Or a combination of one at the 4, one at the 5. So yeah, I think there's some interesting line. I think this team is definitely more athletic on paper than last year's team. But I don't know. I'd love to see them get another center for depth's sake, but I don't think they're going to land a center this late in the game that's like going to be their starter.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So we'll see. I hope the center spot isn't a liability. I don't think, at least as the roster's constructed and just again on paper, I don't think it's going to be one of the first, second, or third top strengths of the team. But I'm hoping it's not like a big issue. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So I agree. I know I'm a huge Adrian Autry critic, and I agree with him that I don't care that they're only 6'9". I really don't.
Whatever.
I don't think it matters all that much. Obviously, at some point, the height kind of does matter. But I mean, at 6'9" in college basketball, I mean, that's okay. You can get by with a 6'9" center. So that's not my worry. My worry is the ability.
Yep.
I don't think either one of these guys are starting caliber centers in the ACC. I just don't. That's how I feel right now.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't think they are. The way I look at it is, there's 18 starting point guards, there's 18 starting shooting guards, 18 small forwards, 18 power forwards, and 18 starting centers in the ACC. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and be an expert on every single team, but
right.
I look at the starting center spot, and I think that's probably the lowest ranked among all the position groups for Syracuse basketball right now relative to the conference. I don't think particularly. I don't think it's close either. Yeah. I think it is probably the big weakness of the team. It's not that they're 6'9". It's that I don't know if they're that good.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that trio is ready to play even 35 minutes a night. And can they even be are they serviceable?
Right.
Like, the way I look at it is, you have 18 starting centers in the ACC, but there are not 18 starting caliber centers in the ACC. In reality, it's probably about half that actually really have the ability to start, and everyone else probably is miscast. That's just the way the sport works. Sure. I use it in sport and pro sports all the time. Like, oh yeah, this guy is a regular. There's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, but there are not 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there's really only about 20 to 25, and everyone else is kind of just rotating in and out. Yeah. That's the way I kind of view it out with these centers. I don't think either of them are starting caliber big men in the ACC. I look at their defense and I say, yeah, so why don't the metrics like William Kyle? What am I missing? I would be happily proven wrong about it.
Sure.
Like, genuinely, I would love to be wrong. I would love to come on the podcast 3 games into the season and being like, yeah, William Kyle's just an elite defender. I don't know what Evan Maya was talking about. Like, it's just wrong. Like, Evan Maya's just wrong. I'm watching it with my own 2 eyes. I see it. He's great on ball defense. He's great pick and roll. He obviously blocks shots. Like, this is exactly what Syracuse needed. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. So I look at Syracuse's center spot, and I view it as probably the biggest weakness on the team.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Definitely. Weakness, just unproven. Yeah, just not. Yeah, I agree.
Well, Neil, any last thoughts here?
No, thanks for having me on 2 in a row, man. I owe you, brother. I owe you.
No, you don't really owe me. You're all good. Well, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, thanks, bud. So I'm at my personal is at Damn Twin, and Inside the Loud House is at Loudhouse FS.
Awesome. That is Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is, of course, Locked On Syracuse, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Portal Show with recruiting expert Brian Smith, who's got the latest rumors and signings each and every day. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Locked On Portal Show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe, and you're going to want to turn on those notifications. So hit that bell button so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast, and I will see you all again soon.